UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Alex Armstrong. Breaking tonight, it is Musk versus Trump, the showdown of the century. The Tesla boss has decided to take his feud with the President Trump to the next level and has formed his own party. Guess what it's called? The America Party. Could Musk be about to end the American two-party system? Higher taxes are on the way, the Telegraph reports. The Prime Minister has paved the way for his government to take more from you by signing up the country to a new pact that endorses a global agreement for greater levies. Reform has been rocked. One of its MPs, James McMurdoch, has asked for the whip to be withdrawn from him while he awaits a nationwide story to break. We'll be getting the latest developments on that story on this show. Here's a shock for you. The Tories are getting tough on foreigners. They say foreigners should be barred from claiming key disability benefits to reduce Britain's cost of the cost of our welfare bill that's obviously been exploding. That's all in the Sunday newspapers. It's all a little bit too late, though, isn't it? We'll see you shortly. Joining me on my panel tonight are my superstar guests, Linda Jubilee, Paul Richards and Laura McEvitt. And what's going on here? Right, we're going to go through your front pages that we've just landed hot off the press. Let's start off with The Independent. Reeves warns she must break promise not to raise taxes. Well, there you go. That's quite a big story there. Didn't we see it coming? Perhaps I'm going to get the thoughts of my panel here in just a second. Let's move on to The Sun. They're leading with, of course, that horrific accident with Liverpool star Jota there. With us forever, Diego Jota there. His funeral took place today with a list of superstar footballers. The Observer. The Real Salt Path, how a blockbuster book and film was spun from lies, deceit and desperation. And then The Telegraph. Axe sickness benefits for foreigners. Tories urge Badenoch to make cutting welfare a clear dividing line with Starmer and Farage. Of course, they've got the Reform MP James McMurdoch there quitting over COVID. Loans row, they say. Right, I want to bring my panel immediately on this because this front page on The Independent here is pretty damning. Linda Jubilee, love to start with you on this one. Rachel Reeves has warned she must break promise not to raise taxes. Is anyone surprised?
No, because it's a matter of basic arithmetic. The fact of the matter is we can calculate what happened with that terrible shambles with the benefit bill this week, so we know how much money is missing from the calculations. We know roughly how much money we need to achieve things going forward. And the fact of the matter is that when Jim O'Neill says something like she must break this promise to raise taxes, he's deadly serious, he's a highly intelligent man, and generally speaking, I think he's one of the voices of reason. The fact of the matter is that you have to make an adjustment to either VAT or income tax or one of the big levers in order to make this country work if you are going to achieve increased defence spending and some of the other things with nuclear power that we have to do. It's a calculation.
Yeah, Lauren, I'm just going to read a little bit more in here. Lord O'Neill, an ex-Treasury Minister as well as a former advisor to the Chancellor, says she must U-turn on her pledge not to raise taxes for working people or the government will have to abandon other priorities. They've got themselves into a little bit of a mess here economically, haven't they, over the last year? U-turning in this and that, all these things that would have been factored into the budgets, factored into the economic plan for the next couple of years. They're going to have to rescind at least on some of those promises.
They've got themselves into a political pickle before the economic pickle actually becomes an economic reality. The political pickle here is actually much bigger. In 2010, when the Conservatives came in, it became really rapidly apparent, along with the Lib Dems, obviously we tend to forget about them, it became rapidly apparent that we were going to have to break an election promise and VAT was going to have to go up. And it happened immediately. And you know what? Most people had forgotten about it by the time of the next election.
Interesting.
The political nous that worked would have been to come in last July and say, my God, the books are so much worse than we thought they were. They're going to have to go up a little bit and to take the pain early instead of doing what they did, which was cherry-pick older people, disabled people, all the groups that the Labour Party voters will have felt, why are you going for them first? Meanwhile, they've got themselves into a position where everybody in the country is going to start feeling a lot poorer under Labour. They didn't think that they were going to, and Labour were telling their voters that the Conservatives weren't spending enough money, coming in after the Conservatives have spent more money than the man who blew the bank at Monte Carlo, and there is no more money for them to spend. And what everybody was presuming was that this was a 1997 election, when in reality it was a 2010 election.
Yeah. Paul, I mean, it's not looking good for the Chancellor, is it? She's had a bit of a horrific week, let alone having more news like this, where she's being sort of pulled in different directions. Obviously, not that long ago, we saw we saw Angela Rayner put across her economic manifesto, which almost seemed like a manifesto for leadership, if you ask me. Is she trapped between a rock and a hard place here?
Well, I mean, Lauren's point about VAT is well made, but let's not forget what happened with tuition fees, and the electors did remember the
Only
pledge,
for the Lib Dems,
and then the pledge broke, and lots of Lib Dems did indeed lose their seats, as partly for that reason. Also, challenging you, I mean, the national minimum wage has gone up for millions of workers, so you're saying people are feeling poorer. Actually, a lot of those low-paid workers are going to see a pay rise, so some of their money is going to increase in their pockets. The big picture is, though, she's boxed herself in with these pledges, and I'm sort of interested where this story comes from and why it's on the front page of The Independent. You know, this guy, I don't imagine, just decided this morning just to speak his brains out loud to this newspaper and place this story. It could well be this is a softening up exercise.
This is pitch rolling.
This is pitch rolling, isn't it? This is a ramp up to what looks like possibly a climb down on one of those issues.
It just seems.
Well, she told the Parliamentary Labour Party, you know, she's been saying to the MPs who rebelled, you know, your rebellion comes with a cost.
That's right.
Financial cost. And it's either we don't do something we said we'd do, or we have to look at the taxes.
I think she was very badly let down by Liz Kendall and the DWP, actually, because what was being proposed was badly thought out. And you can see that from the welfare.
Was wrong. It was
you
bad
can see that
policy.
from even just the welfare green paper that accompanied, where they had fundamentally misunderstood in saying that they were going to raise the age at which you could apply to PIP to 18, because that's when people leave school now. That's only when people leave school in England. In Wales and Scotland, Northern Ireland, it's still 16.
But that whole shambles was enough to make her look so devastated. I know that she's talked about there being some kind of personal reason behind this, but really, what's gone on is...
Oh, I thought it was because the speaker yelled at her.
Oh, but
Not allowed to roll your eyes at the speaker.
But I feel she's a little tougher than that. I don't think she's tough. But then again, look, you know, there's a lot going on. I mean, she's trying to get to stick to her financial priorities. She's trying to lead the manifesto the way they pledged to the public they would, which I think is at least an honourable thing to do, to stick to your manifesto. She's now being forced to withdraw all those comments that were made. She's going to be forced, at least, during the election, when she said, we're not going to raise taxes on working people.
I felt tremendous sympathy for her, because I watched it live. I watched PMQs live, and I could see her before she started crying. And it was obvious, absolutely obvious, she had had probably days of being traumatised.
Yes.
And so I felt a great deal of sympathy for her when that all happened.
She does cry. She is a crier.
Politics is a tough business.
Yeah. I've seen her cry.
Whilst I understand what you're saying, Linda, I think she's come out and said this now. I don't believe she should have sat through PMQ.
But if she hadn't, it would look like there was a split of the government.
I think it would be better than the gilt yield spiking and the pound falling, because at the end of the day, she is the second most powerful person.
What would have been better, politically speaking, was for the team leader of the Labour Party to back his Chancellor early, to back her hard, and to call the leader of the opposition on Privy Council terms beforehand and say there is a personal issue going on with the Chancellor. She's not going to be on the bench.
When Kemi attacked her for crying, that did not look good.
No one is going to remember that. What people remember is what happened with Rachel Reeves. And I know it's upsetting, but at the end of the day, politics is a tough business. People need
But people
to
should be allowed to
really-
cry. Churchill used to cry all the time.
Not
Like,
on
he
the
was a
front
great
bench.
crier.
Not on
It's
the-
the
not on the
times have
front
changed.
bench,
That's the issue, isn't it? Everything's on social media now. But I want to talk about this other small story at the top here. More than 20 arrested at Palestine Action protest in London. Of course, we were there today. I wonder if we can show you a short clip on that now. Now seen multiple arrests by the Met Police. Many questions will be asked whether the government made the right decision today. We've been interviewing a lot of people. There is an irony, isn't there, of people who want freedom of speech. There is an irony of people who are protesting for freedom of speech but don't want to hear what we have to say. We're just here reporting the facts. Look at some of the interviews we've just done today. Yes, lots happening there today. As you can see, we got chased around Parliament Square for a little while, but we got some fantastic interviews. If you haven't seen them, you can watch them back here on Ben Leo tonight on this show. Paul, the far left, as I like to call them, at least in my opinion, they only seem to like freedom of speech when it matters to them. Of course, I don't want there to be any point in time where people cannot use their voice freely. But however, this was misplaced, wasn't it?
Yes, totally. And this idea of them being the far left, I mean, there is an intersection there with the sort of Islamist right and sort of semi-red fascistic kind of.
There's like a U-shape, but they all come together at the end, don't they?
The famous horseshoe model, where somehow people who think they're the good guys are in political bed with really bad guys in common cause.
Yeah, well, Linda, what do you think of it?
Well, I think, all in all, I get so distressed about the streets of London being overtaken this way every single weekend. No, I'm not talking about the Pride March, but every weekend there's turmoil on our streets, and it really baffles me that this is allowed to go on to the extent that it does.
Lauren, I mean, it's costing us a fortune, isn't it?
And they're ending outside my flat.
Are they really? More reason to despise it.
When they march to, well, essentially, to be incredibly,
In life, you win some and you lose some.
Which is incredibly irritating, aside from all the other reasons that they irritate me for very serious matters. But they are costing a huge amount of money. 60,000 people ending up next to the US Embassy for reasons passing my understanding. I thought they were protesting Israel rather than the Americans.
Well, quite, yeah. Everyone seems to be at risk of them protesting, though. It does feel, in my opinion. There's another.
I think there's a.
Go ahead.
Can I just say very quickly as well? There's a whole thing about viewer fatigue, where you and I know this because I've spent a long time in rolling news, but you watch these pictures again and again and again, and the actual ability to effectively protest is slowly worn away, and people in the end don't pay any attention to this kind
That's
of thing.
true. Well, there we go. Let's hope that happens. That's my opinion, at least. There's another story here on the top of the Independent, just one down from that Palestine Action arrest. And it's Georgina Fuller here. She says, as a mother, I am disturbed that there is now a lower body spray for boys. And I'm going to bring my panel on this, but I hope one of my best friends isn't watching, because he, with glee, went on a date, and the girl he went on a date with actually gave him some of these lower body products. One of them was a wipe, and the other one was a form of deodorant for your unspeakable parts. I don't think that was a compliment, Sam, if you're watching.
Ouch!
Lauren.
When I was at university, we had these things called Lynx offenders, where you have a guy putting Lynx absolutely everywhere, and you retch every time you smell Lynx Africa as you walk down the tube station.
I had two teenage boys, believe me.
It's a rough zone. But basically, if you are, top tip for the boys, if you are spraying anything down there and hoping to get in any way close to a woman, you're going to cause unmitigated disaster.
Why is it such a big thing that it's, this is a lower body spray for boys?
Well, hopefully so they stop using Lynx.
It's been lower body spray for girls when I was
Don't use that either.
Well, is it a question that maybe young men aren't being as clean as they used to be?
No, just stop spraying Lynx down there. I think that this is actually it might be a step up.
Oh, you mean
Right.
if it was a posh brand,
Lauren's
it would
for
be
it.
okay.
Lauren, I didn't realise you were for it. I thought
Well, maybe they've improved the science, and therefore Lynx is going to stop causing, allergic reactions to every woman under the age of 23 at university.
Paul, I don't want to ask you. haven't tried any of these products yourself ever?
I've got two sons.
Yeah.
One is an adult, one is a teenager. The advice, of course, is wash.
Wash.
Yes.
Quite right.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Quite right. Yeah, OK. Let's call it a day on that note, shall we? Well, let's cross over to some live pictures where a Progress cargo craft is returning to Earth at the International Space Station. Yeah, the unpiloted Roscosmos Progress 92 spacecraft is safely in orbit, headed for the International Space Station following a launch at 3:32 p.m. EDT. This is happening moments ago. These aren't live photos, but they're moments ago. Of course, we can't get a very good live stream from space, unfortunately. The Soyuz rocket from the Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan was launched not that long ago. After a 2-day in orbit, the journey to the station, the spacecraft will dock autonomously to the space-facing port of the orbiting laboratories Poisk module at approximately 5:27 p.m. on Saturday, July the 5th. Today, NASA's rendezvous and docking coverage will begin at 4:45 p.m. Of course, you can catch that on NASA's own channels. So the spacecraft is going to be delivering about 3 tons of food, fuel and other supplies to the space station. Quite incredible. So I love space. I don't know if there's anyone else on the panel that shares my fascination with space. I think we should be launching rockets from this country because the space age is going to be one of the biggest things in the world. There's satellites everywhere now. Elon Musk has been launching them everywhere. We are so far behind. Why don't we have a space programme? Why is the European...
Because we haven't got any money.
Well, find some money. Let's make some more.
From
Let's
where?
bring some wealthy people back over here.
Are you trying to make Rachel cry again?
Well, no, I want private investors to do it. I don't want the government to do it. I want people like Elon Musk to come over to this country and build a massive spaceport for us somewhere in Scotland where it's very easy. It's going to boost the economy.
It's really hard to build a spaceport in this part of the world.
Yeah.
Well,
There's a reason they were launching from French Guyana for all those
They
years.
can launch those rockets and they get caught by those little things and they catch them. They can build a spaceport in Scotland.
Can we do this once we've got a regular train service?
It'd be really nice,
What, do
wouldn't
you
it?
want a nationalised space station? That's what you're after, isn't it?
No, I
Paul?
want trains and buses that work first. And then
Yeah,
we can worry
I
about
think that'd be
space
great.
later.
No,
Also,
listen,
we don't
I
know who we're
understand.
irritating up there. That's always been my big fear. We don't know if we're going to poke somebody we shouldn't poke.
Oh, I hope we're not irritating anyone up there.
Well,
Do
exactly.
you think we're alone in the
That's
world?
a thought that's going to fester, isn't it?
Well, it might do now, actually. I imagine the UK is the one that sets off a global, intergalactic
Because we've
space war.
accidentally offended someone,
Yeah,
which is our national nightmare.
Yeah, quick one. Do you believe there's aliens out there?
Yeah, I think there is almost certainly some form of life
Yeah.
somewhere in the universe.
I think there's a tremendous
It might not
arrogance
be-
to think we might be alone.
Yes.
It might not be,
Yes.
that's right, but it might not be life as we understand it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the chances of there being nothing else out there are small.
One of my favourite little cartoons.
Paul's the sceptic. Hang on,
Well, I
Paul's
think,
shaking his head.
I'm
Come on.
pretty
Just
sure it
think
would have
about
turned
it.
up by now, wouldn't
No,
we?
of course
Wouldn't
it
we know?
wouldn't.
I don't
Well,
think.
I'll tell you why. I tell you why I disagree with you. Because there's a brand new telescope. So I love this stuff. Sorry, I'm going to geek out for just 1 second. There is a brand new telescope. Just took a picture of a small part of our night sky. I think it's somewhere in Peru, and it found billions and billions and billions and billions of galaxies.
Right.
Just in this tiny little quadrant that we took a picture of. I can't believe by looking at all that and all the planets and all the solar systems, right, that we would be alone. It just
But that
seems
means all religion is wrong, doesn't it?
Well,
Every
maybe
single
not,
religion
maybe
is
not.
wrong.
No, it doesn't.
No, it
Yes, it
might be
does.
the opposite.
It doesn't
Might
mean that
actually
at
be the
all.
opposite.
Yes, it does.
If God is...
All the religious myths
if
are
God-
based just on Earth.
No, the religious texts are based on Earth. The myths that go behind them aren't necessarily.
That's right. The higher
The Big Bang
being-
is all really about God creating it.
Exactly, and if you believe that God is omnipresent and omnipowerful, then yes, you
Well,
could
he's done
believe
it
that he's done it
everywhere
everywhere else as well.
Right, well, talking of incredible intergalactic things, well, maybe you can actually own this one, and we can definitely declare that. This is our biggest cash prize so far, an incredible £54,321. Wow. And here's all the details you need to make it yours.